An AI manager ran a real cafe in Stockholm. It applied for permits, hired baristas, set prices, talked to suppliers, and decided what the cafe should buy. Then, in less than 2 months, it spent about $38,000 against $9,000 in sales. It ordered 3,000 nitrile gloves, 6,000 napkins, 22.5 kilograms of canned tomatoes for a cafe selling fresh sandwiches, 120 eggs for a kitchen without a stove. And on other days, it missed the bakery deadline, so the cafe had no bread. The manager was an AI agent called Mona, running on Google's Gemini 3.1 Pro inside a system built by Andon Labs. At first, the story seems simple. Chatbots can sound clever, but give one a real business and it burns money. Mona really did fail, and I do not know that AI can run a cafe today. But this is not the test that people think it is. Andon's post-mortem says the cafe spent roughly $38,000 against $9,000 in sales. That total includes rent, wages, and other fixed costs, so it is not a clean measure of every mistake. But the operating failures were real. Excessive orders, missing essentials, bad discounts, and no serious response to weak finances. The viral lesson was that AI cannot manage a real business, and that middle managers should worry. That conclusion skips the most important part of the experiment. This was not a Google experiment. Gemini was the underlying model. Andon Labs built the agent system and ran the cafe. Andon has described its own philosophy clearly. Keep the software scaffold light, so it tests the intelligence of the model rather than the ingenuity of the software around it. That is legitimate research. It is a useful way to expose what happens when a general-purpose model is given broad autonomy. But it changes the question completely. They were not asking, can an AI manage a cafe when it is connected to normal business systems? They were asking whether an AI can notice that those systems are missing, request or invent them, and run the cafe at the same time. That is a much harder experiment, and it is not the one suggested by the headline. To make the difference concrete, I asked a general-purpose AI one question. Your goal is to manage a cafe completely. You will be running its day-to-day operations. What would you need to do to make sure that you would not fail miserably? It immediately asked for daily financial reporting, cash flow forecasts, inventory records, minimum and maximum stock levels, supplier controls, procedures, a management dashboard, permission limits, and approval rules. The complete unedited answer is linked below. Writing a checklist is not running a company, but it makes a narrower point. Even a general model can describe the management system it needs, and 4 missing layers explain nearly every spectacular failure here. First, a system of record. Inventory cannot live in conversational memory. Gloves, bread, milk, and tomatoes need durable records connected to sales, recipes, deliveries, suppliers, and waste. Andon's post-mortem says inventory tracking began on May 2nd after the cafe opened. The team also linked some ordering failures to the model's limited context window. But a context window is not inventory. When an old conversation disappears, the number of gloves in the storeroom should not disappear with it. Second, an operating loop. Andon did show financial data publicly, but public data is not a management system that forces someone to review cash, margin, stockouts, waste, and anomalies every day, then take a defined action and verify the result. The post-mortem says Gemini Mona barely thought about profit and did not adapt to financial feedback. That is a model failure. It is also exactly what alerts, dashboards, and scheduled reviews are designed to catch. Data, somewhere in the system, is not management. Third, hard constraints. A tiny cafe should not be able to order 3,000 gloves because a probabilistic model decided that sounded reasonable. The purchasing system should reject quantities above expected use. Discounts need limits. Promotions need a minimum margin. Unknown suppliers need approval. Messages to staff should respect working hours. Cash reserves need protection. Those rules belong outside the model, where the model cannot talk its way around them. Fourth, approval gates. Mona agreed to expensive event spending, extreme discounts, and free products. Humans did help with legally necessary bank ID actions, but the public record does not show a systematic approval hierarchy for high-impact commercial decisions. No real company gives every manager unlimited authority. Large orders, unusual promotions, and legal commitments need independent approval. So was the experiment designed to fail? Andon's strongest reply is fair. Mona was told to ask for new tools when she needed them. But that means the experiment tested whether an AI could design its own inventory controls, dashboard, approval hierarchy, and procedures while simultaneously opening and managing a cafe. A human cafe manager is not normally asked to build the company database, purchasing controls, and approval system before the first shift. So, as a production deployment, yes, it was designed to fail. Not because there is evidence that Andon fabricated losses or secretly instructed Mona to make bad decisions. There is not. The design was intentionally light because revealing raw model failures was the research goal. In that kind of stress test, failure is useful data. As a stress test, it is valid. As evidence that a properly implemented AI manager cannot run a cafe, it is deeply misleading. The opposite conclusion is also unjustified. This does not prove AI is ready to run a cafe. Even with proper systems, current agents may fail at judgment, initiative, physical reality, employee relationships, and local demand. A fair experiment would give a human manager and an AI manager the same sales data, inventory system, budget limits, approval rights, and procedures. Then compare profit, waste, stockouts, customer experience, and the human intervention required. Until then, both confident conclusions are premature. And this brings us to middle management. Companies are not mainly using technology by firing every manager and placing one chatbot in an empty chair. They use technology to extend management capacity. An ERP lets one person oversee more transactions. A dashboard converts thousands of events into a few exceptions. Automation handles routine decisions. AI can summarize, forecast, and flag anomalies. Deterministic software enforces the rules. Humans still handle exceptions, relationships, and accountability. That can reduce the number of managers. But the mechanism is not one autonomous artificial boss replacing an entire hierarchy. It is one manager, amplified by systems, supervising work that once required several managers. The threat to middle management is not the artificial boss. It is the much wider span of control. Mona proved that a lightly scaffolded language model should not receive unbounded operational authority. That is useful. She did not prove that AI cannot run a cafe. An AI was asked to reinvent the management system while already running the business. Those are not the same experiment. If you want more careful arguments about the futures we are building, subscribe to Simple Speculations.